Well, friends, today we start out with the Artemis II missions. We're going to cover about 15 to 17 questions that were asked by people who called in.
What sort of questions were being asked?
The very first question that was asked was, how long is it going to take for you to get there? Well, in Apollo 11, we all know that it took, 3 days?
Yeah, 3 days.
Well, they're going to give a reason why it's going to take longer than that.
Because I got to refuel on the way. Sorry. No.
Well, that's the SLS system for you, but we don't know because they're not talking about that much here. And don't forget, this is Artemis II. It's only going around the moon. And then one of the other questions was this: is this a repeat of Apollo 8? Apollo 8 did this 57 years ago, or close to it, and the only difference I can see is that it's going to take twice as long to get there.
What was their answer to that question? Because that would have been my question.
So the lady's going on about the LCC, something like that, and how the configuration is different from that of Apollo. Oh, and that it is a less risk reduction. How can that be a less of a risk reduction when you haven't sent people around the moon since Apollo 8 as far as we're concerned?
Assuming they sent them then when they said they did.
Then there's a question about Mars. Well, why don't we try making it to the moon first, guys, before we go on any fantasy runs about Mars? And then one of the call-in questions, the lady's talking about the SLS system, specifically the solid booster rockets. So she's going on about this spectacular failure that we saw with the solid rocket motor exploding. Then the lady representing them said that it was a new design and that they had to test it. So she's going on about new technology, that's the first thing, that they redesigned the boosters and that it has all been repaired.
Oh, that's good news, he said ironically.
Then we get to this other question: have you repaired the heat shield yet?
That's a good question, because they haven't said they've repaired it yet.
So this lady in the audience is asking them about the heat shield and the performance. And have they solved the problem with the first heat shield on Orion? And then he's asking them, have you solved the problems with the heat shield on Artemis I? Because it was also burned.
December 2014, that was the first one, first Orion test. It's when the heat shield nearly packed in.
Well, the way the panel is answering all of these questions is the same old story. It's all been fixed. We solved the problems. Out of 17 questions, not one person brought up the question about radiation.
Really? Not one?
Not one.
I thought that would be the first question. How do you protect the astronauts from the radiation? Should have been the question. Maybe they were told not to ask about it. Presumably there was no question about vacuum.
Oh, heck no.
No, of course not. And the effect that the vacuum might have on the equipment.
This is question number 9 from a reporter from Spaceflight magazine. Now he's talking about the emergency egress system and whether they're going to do a shakedown of it, including the astronauts escaping from that command capsule down the trolley on those wires that takes them to safety. One basket hanging off the escape ropes, I believe there's 3 baskets side by side. So if there's a problem, the astronauts get out of the capsule, they get into the basket, and then they go down the wire to safety. Well, if the rocket explodes, you're not going to have time to get out of that, are you? Because the escape system, the rockets on the top are going to fire, and they're going to take you to safety. So why would you have that? Oh, wait a minute, that's for the crew to go down. But what they fail to realize is that if that rocket explodes, the whole tower's coming down. I don't think they realize that.
No, I don't think they do.
Let's take a look at the N1 rocket. When that thing exploded, people half a mile away were lighting up like matchsticks.
Yep.
So to me, the question this guy's asking about have they tested it seems to be irrelevant.
It is. Totally irrelevant.
So now we come to question 10, and he's asking the question about the SRB, the solid rocket booster, and he says this: did that prompt you to do any tests or safety analysis before you strap that onto the Artemis II rocket with the capsule on top? Then the lady answering says, we confirm that there is a difference in the configuration between the 2 different booster types, and that problem has been solved now. So that's the second question that they've asked about those boosters. Here's a good one. With the 10 days being out there and the dangers encountered, how are you going to bring the public along? How many times have we seen that in the past? You get one camera view, one on the inside of the dummy piloting the command module, and the other one outside looking at the moon, and the moon looks like Swiss cheese. So, are you guys going to have more cameras in there, or are you going to have 3 cameras, 4 cameras, 5 cameras? How many cameras are you going to have? Because we've seen what happened last time. You had one camera inside and you had one camera outside, that's what it looks like to us, and we never got to see the rest of them. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. How many cameras are they going to have in there? Well, they don't really say. And then she asks, what type of cameras are they? How many cameras are you going to use? How many are you going to have on the exterior, on the interior? They don't say. It sounds to me like they're a bunch of politicians going off on a tangent, never answering the question.
Yeah, they don't answer the question, not to the extent that you'd expect them to answer it, with detail and dates when testing was done on the solid fuel boosters, solid rocket boosters. And the camera question should be very simple to answer. We have one on the outside, or 3 on the outside, 2 on the inside, and we're going to have a permanent feed. That's what they should answer. They do all this fluff, walking around the question, trying not to answer it directly. I suppose NASA is a political organization as well. But the impression I seem to get is that NASA are not providing good information to the press. And I don't think the astronauts are going to be too pleased about it either.
I don't know about you, but if I were an astronaut going on a trip like that, the thing that I would be concerned about would be the radiation.
Yeah.
It appears to me that this question is not being asked here, or it's being avoided.
No.
And this is 44 minutes and 59 seconds worth of questions, which was opened up to the audience, the press, and people on the telephone. You could ask any question, and out of 17 questions, not one question about radiation came up to that panel.
That's not very good. That's not showing NASA are taking care of their astronauts. Because if they haven't provided the information about the radiation levels beyond the Van Allen belt, not in them, beyond them, the astronauts probably don't know either, otherwise they'd have chipped in and answered it, but they haven't.
Well, at the beginning of the presentation, they could have mentioned radiation, but I didn't watch the whole thing. I was more concerned with the questions that were being phoned in, the questions the press were asking, and the questions that were being asked by the audience members. And yet not one question about radiation came up. Heck, they're going on about the moon, Mars. He's comparing this mission, Artemis II, to when early colonists came to America. Good God! How can you compare that to the Apollo 11 mission that supposedly landed on the lunar surface?
In fact, when the first colonists landed in America, they had a real problem staying alive. It was the Native Americans who showed them how to stay alive.
So sending people to Mars would be one step in that direction. Why don't you people try to get a mission to the moon first? So here they are talking about Mars and all these fantasy trips that they're going to take with these ships like Elon Musk, sending all these AI robots to Mars. Well, why don't they send these AI robots to the lunar surface first, and then they could build these underground bases for these people before they even arrive there? Oh, wait a minute, we have to build them underground because they're going to be bombarded by solar radiation and cosmic radiation. So if they don't build it underground, that's not going to work out very well for the people living in it, is it? Especially now when the solar activity is very active.
Yeah, it's very active at the moment. Satellites are being knocked out of the sky, well, space, interference with GPS.
The Van Allen belts don't even come up in this conversation anywhere in this interview.
Let alone what protection the astronauts are being offered.
You see, that's another one. And in the live that we had last week with Wheezy, there was one guy there in the comment section, and he was going on about how Raza Fahari was lying about the boron nitride nanotubes being used in the command capsule to line the walls. Well, the thing is Raza's only presented with the information that he has at the time, so he's not lying. So I really wish that you NASA proponents out there would stop with this lying business and just get on with it. So then I asked Ajera what they were using. And he said that they were not using boron nitride nanotubes on Artemis II, nor are they using it on Artemis III. You're not going to believe this. For Artemis II, NASA is using a multifaceted approach to radiation shielding, combining the passive shielding of the Orion spacecraft's materials with the active, wearable Astrorad radiation shielding vest worn by the crew. The Astrorad vest is made from a hydrogen-rich plastic which is highly effective at stopping the charged particles common in space radiation, such as protons and alpha ions. The Orion spacecraft itself also provides significant passive shielding from its structure. Astrorad vests. So this is what it's made from, a hydrogen-rich plastic.
It's got to be a particular type of plastic. Obviously not the same plastic that was used in the film cameras to protect the film, because that all damaged.
Does that also mean that they are going to be wearing these Astrorad vests when they take off their spacesuit and put on their flight suit?
Well, presumably. You'd think they'd have them built in, wouldn't you?
Well, the data collected from the detectors that were placed on Zora and Helga's phantom torsos helps NASA and its partners understand and minimize the effects of radiation for future deep space missions. This isn't a deep space mission.
No, that's when they go to Mars. They need deep space protection. They still needed going to the moon. Very weird, very odd. What question would you have asked if you were there?
I would have asked, how are you being protected from cosmic radiation and solar flares? And I don't mean go hiding somewhere in the back. There's no place to hide.
No, there's nowhere to hide.
On the live stream, I asked Jera about that, the Astrorad radiation plastic. What he wants to see is he wants to see them on live TV with the camera in the front, looking back at the Earth with the camera pressed to that window. And we're not talking about putting the camera in the back like they tried to do on the Apollo mission. And I want to see the astronauts moving around on another camera so that we can compare the two, so that they're not out there in low Earth orbit like they tried to get away with the Apollo missions. And he said he would like to see what type of material they're using to line the inside walls of that command capsule. Now my question is, are they going to be lining the inside of that capsule with the Astrorad plastic? I don't really think so, because the astronauts are going to be wearing that vest. What I would like to see is those vests tested in a laboratory where the vacuum is taken down to torr 10 to the minus 7. The same as somebody donning on one of those gloves and placing it into that vacuum chamber, and it was supposed to have worked. Well, where's the pictures? Where's the evidence? We don't see any live coverage of that, do we? I haven't been able to find it. And the same thing with that experiment that Jera was showing, where they placed aluminum in front of that radioactive isotope, and the radiation was reflected all over the laboratory. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, it did. It was quite a good little experiment, that, because you could see it happening.
Yeah, that was the nice part about that, because you could see it happening live right in front of your face. So now the NASA proponents can't just say, well, the guy turned the dials just to make it go that way, because that's exactly what they would say if you didn't show them the evidence. And then we were also talking about the Lunar Laboratory's vacuum chamber, that supposedly it can take the chamber down to torr 10 to the minus 7, while a human occupant places one of these Apollo gloves inside of it. And once again, we don't see any film footage, we don't see any pictures, we don't see any evidence of someone donning on one of those Apollo space gloves and placing their hand inside of that vacuum chamber and vacuuming it down to torr 10 to the minus 7. So where is the evidence for this? And I said, well, what about Ralph Renee's experiment? He put on one of those rubber gloves, placed it in his vacuum chamber, sucked it down, and look what happened to him. He couldn't even put his fingers together. Then one guy in the stream was saying, oh yes, but NASA's gloves are different. They're made of a hard material. They're made of different fabrics. But if you watch the video of the NASA technicians actually making these gloves, you'll see that the glove is dipped in a rubber compound and then removed to dry. And then that goes off to another team who finishes producing the glove, much like you're doing there. So tell me, what was so special about this glove? And here's a little piece of information that Neil Ward was telling me. He went to a museum where they have a chamber set up with two of these gloves where you can put your hands inside. And what they do is they have a nut and a bolt in that chamber that you can actually assemble with those gloves on. Here's the problem with that: they do not remove the atmosphere from the chamber, so there's no point in it. It makes no sense. So if you ask me, there's no point in having that demonstration in that museum. So either install a pump in that display or get rid of it. It is of no use. And if memory serves, I do believe that Ralph Renee used a vacuum cleaner to vacate the air out of his chamber. That tells you something.
Well, there's certainly no point in having a glove in a box if you haven't got a vacuum to compare the ability to use it on Earth as opposed to the moon, where the vacuum is quite hard. They're just trying to fool us to make us believe that it all happened. Very strange.
You have to listen to the way this panel are answering these questions. At least the astronauts appear to know more than the administration does. And then you look at the fellow on the right side. He looks like the propagandist that NASA is using to perpetuate this nonsense.
Ah, okay. I just checked out that press conference, or some of it. Pretty weak questions, in my view. Very weak answers. They didn't answer any of them. As you said earlier, where's the questions about radioactivity and radiation? None of them.
Yeah, it's almost like they're told not to ask that question. I really liked that one question when that fellow was asking about the Apollo versus Artemis. He asked the question, is this a repeat of Apollo 8? And I thought that was interesting. And of course, they're saying, no, it's not, because this is new technology. Yes, this is new technology that you've had since 2014. Okay, it's 2025. Well, that's 2 years minus 10 years.
Yeah. How long did Apollo take from standing start to landing, allegedly? 8 years. First test of Orion was 2014. It's now 2025. That's 11 years. So where's all this new technology? It's ridiculous. And they said they got new technology. They haven't tested it yet, have they?
Well, they're still having trouble with the heat shield, but apparently that has been dealt with now.
Yeah. It's easier to say it's been dealt with, but where's the evidence it has been?
Apollo 8 to Apollo 17 did not require a lunar gateway station.
No, didn't.
So why did they need that?
And why do they need to refuel it as well? Can't they take enough fuel to get down onto the moon and get back up again?
Well, there has been a couple of animations that people have been putting out there. I believe one of them was by NASA, or at least NASA's art department, showing that the Artemis vehicle that's carrying the lunar lander has to dock first at the Lunar Gateway Station so that the lunar lander can be fueled. So, does that mean that they are going to dock there and that the fuel's already going to be on board of the Lunar Gateway Station? Or are they going to take that fuel with them at launch? Well, it would be kind of foolish to take it at launch because now you're adding even more weight, and those tanks are 3 times the size of what the Apollo LEM had. Because when you watch them assembling the tanks and then installing them, they're the size of a human.
So where are they going to fit?
Yeah, there's 4 of those too. Well, in some animations there's 6, others there's 8. The one that NASA's art department put up there is
Yep.
4. So you don't really know what's going on. So now you have 3 different craft. You have Artemis, the SLS system, then you have Elon Musk's Starship, and then you have Jeff Bezos's rocket system. So really, there's 3 systems here. And Elon Musk's system is the only one that has to refuel all those times. And I really love how Destin at Smarter Every Day called that out.
Yep, he did. In front of NASA.
Yes.
It's sad.
And he was showing a paper there with 15 refuels. On the live stream, one fella that's a NASA proponent, he was saying that Elon Musk uses methane and that doesn't boil off. Okay, well, it might not boil off, but it's still going to require a minimum of 15 fuel tankers to get that thing to land on the lunar surface and back again. And not only that, but Starship is going to land the whole craft there, minus the 30 rockets. That, of course, that comes back and is caught in the chopsticks. Isn't it amazing that that always comes back, but it's the rocket with the human occupants on board that always either explodes or disintegrates,
Yeah,
or explodes when it touches the water because it missed the landing pad.
it'd be a pity that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so have they practiced refueling? They haven't. So how do they know it's going to work?
Oh, that's because they refuel the ISS all the time. A spokesperson from NASA was saying that because they refuel the ISS, now, of course, they don't mean refueling it because there's no rockets on the ISS. They use dynamos to change the orientation,
Yeah.
but they still have to fuel something, and they showed it a few times with a robotic arm coming out from one of those resupply ships and refueling whatever they were refueling on the ISS. So he's claiming that that's enough practice for them to refuel.
Quite different.
Very different.
They've still got to build the gateway, haven't they?
Oh, yes. Well, they have three modules completed now. They still
Good.
have two to go. They're showing one of those modules being loaded onto the rocket. And guess where the rocket is right now? Yeah, it's still sitting there waiting to go. It hasn't even been moved to the launch pad yet.
Well, they've got to have the gateway built, ready to go when the astronauts go on Artemis III. It sounds like they've got a bit of work to do yet. And they can say all they like about how it's been tested and how it's been put into practice already, but you've got to actually do it in space. You can't just talk about it. You can't just say you're going to do it. You've got to demonstrate that you can achieve that. And that hasn't happened yet. That's called testing. So they've got to get the tests done for the refueling. I just hope that none of them explode on the way off the launch pad. Bit of a big bang if the whole rocket plus the extra fuel went up in smoke, whatever it goes up in. But they've got to demonstrate that they can get the gateway up into space in orbit around the moon so that Orion can dock with it before it goes down onto the lunar surface for the first time. Hasn't happened yet. Where's the testing? It's a bit sad, really, because we're expected to believe all these wonderful things will happen because NASA says so.
You know what that reminded me of when you said that? We say so. That
We say,
reminded me of that old dinosaurs show and the company with the boss. He said it was We Say So.
yeah,
That's the name of the company. We Say So.
it's going to work because we say so. I'm sorry, we don't believe it. NASA, you have to demonstrate that you can do the things that you say so. And you haven't done that yet.
Then people were talking about moon rocks. Then it started going on to radiation and how radioactive would the lunar surface be? So I went on to ChatGPT 5 and I asked that question and then I posted it in the live in the chat. So it says, good question. Here's a clear breakdown. Number one, natural radioactivity of lunar dust. Lunar dust regolith contains the same naturally radioactive elements found in Earth rocks: 1. Uranium, 2. Thorium, 3. Potassium. The concentrations are generally low, measured in parts per million or for UTH, and a fraction of a percentage for K. Apollo samples showed that the radioactivity levels are comparable to, or a bit higher than, some terrestrial basalts, but far below anything considered dangerous by normal radiation standards. The main hazard of dust is not the radioactivity, but sharpness and abrasiveness. Then, lastly, its radioactivity is minor compared to that of the cosmic rays and solar particle events that astronauts face on the lunar surface. So at least it admitted that cosmic rays and solar particle events did happen while they were on the lunar surface.
Just after Apollo 16, allegedly, X-class flare.
And then it
Yeah.
says here, it says, this is the bottom line. Lunar dust is slightly radioactive, but not dangerously so. The much bigger concern is its abrasiveness, toxic dust properties, and external cosmic radiation environment, not the dust's own radioactivity.
Well, that's because they say so, isn't it?
Yeah, and you want to know how many times that ChatGPT is being incorrect? Yeah, I've lost count. Raza called ChatGPT out too. He said ChatGPT is lying, and he went and he posted that on Facebook. And guess what Facebook did? Took both of my accounts down because I had one linked with his. So I sent a complaint in and I got it back this morning and they apologized and put the accounts back up. So that was something positive for a change.
Only because you were asking rude questions about Apollo.
Yeah, of course. That's the reason why they took it down.
Yeah, Raz was probably a bit upset that his taken down as well.
So this would have been the third one. Oh, yes. Now,
Yeah,
if only we had a radiation detector. Oh, no, they will say, yeah, but Marcus is handling it. He is the radiation detector. He would die from it.
I've died. I've had it for what, 20 years? Taking a while time to get me.
Well,
Never
maybe
mind.
that's why your plants are so healthy back there.
That's good reason. Yeah, look at them.
Yeah, it worked for the astronauts. Look how long they lived.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
big leaves. I like those.
How close do you keep the moon rock to the plant?
Oh, a few feet away.
Oh, that's why it's doing so well.
Yeah, look, it's radioactive fertilizer. Good stuff, that. Good stuff.
Well, it certainly fertilized Charlie Duke.
Yeah, it did.
So on the live stream, we're going over the Barron report, and what really got me was the fact that you have people handling alcohol, pure alcohol, and they have lit cigarettes. They're smoking away, handling all this alcohol. And guess what happens? Well, of course, one fella lit the whole place on fire.
It
Poof.
would. Don't they have any safety regulations around?
Yeah, well, if you ever see that, I'm going to post it. But you see no smoking signs. They didn't care. And of course, the alcohol spilled on them. The guy's clothes go up.
Maybe they all knew it was never going to be real, so they didn't care.
It really makes you wonder. So I have this film of Apollo 11. It's a huge oxygen tank. And right on the side of it is painted in huge red letters, no smoking. Right? And this is, I don't know how many feet away from the launch pad. Well, that's one thing. Oh, no. These guys were on the launch pad
Yeah,
and they were using cigarette lighters to read the words on the pages when it got dark out. Here, this massive rocket is venting all that liquid oxygen, and
yeah.
these guys are they're lighting up cigarette lighters to read the text on the pages.
God,
Where the
haven't
hell is the brains in these people?
no one. It's surprising the damn thing got off the ground at all.
That's funny because that's what someone said in the comments. And it doesn't stop. The debris that was left inside of the capsule, I mean, my God, that was the section in quads. I get it. There's a deficiency list, but this goes on 55, 60 pages. One guy goes to the doctor, he comes back and he doesn't have a job. They were nasty. These foremen, I mean, they were just nasty.
That wouldn't be good for morale or for anybody knowing about it, would it?
No. And then they write in there the NAA gives no satisfaction to any of the workers. They're unsatisfied, the workers, because they're hounded, harassed by the management. The scientists are working on things the engineers should be working on,
Yeah.
and they don't get a tie in time, which means that they don't have any time to actually go over things. Yeah, you're right. How did that rocket get off the ground?
Well, it didn't. That was the point. It was sat on top of the rocket, which is a stupid place to put it. It didn't need to put it there.
And I believe, wasn't it, that was not even a Saturn V stand that was put up?
It was a Saturn I stand, I think it was, which is the single engine rocket. Only went into low Earth orbit.
Yeah, and then Jarrah said about that, you don't use pressurized liquid oxygen or pressurized oxygen of any type when you're doing a plugs out test. You don't need it because
No.
all you're doing is checking the systems. Why would you subject these guys to a pure oxygen environment in the first place and then make it even worse, put it 200 feet in the air?
Yeah, and at 22 pound per square inch.
And then Scott Grissom, that one report, he said he found a plate that was underneath that was meant to spark when they threw one of those switches. And he said that's what caused the calorific bomb to go
Yeah.
off. And they were panicking trying to get out of there, when that fire went off. And you read that one report, panicking trying to get out of that capsule. They had a horrific death. They didn't just die of smoke inhalation, like
So,
NASA says.
given the temperature that would have occurred inside that capsule, if they were wearing spacesuits, didn't there's protection? Didn't they give any protection to the astronauts?
Well, if you look at what was left of those suits, I would say no.
I don't think the suits were working. Well, they certainly couldn't withstand the temperatures. It was absolute tragedy. They were good men. I mean, all of them, White, Chaffee, and Grissom.
And then we get to Thomas Barron, a single rail car with NASA written on it. And he had his stepdaughters and his wife in there. And he's going to commit suicide. And as Jarrah said, not just having your family in there, but he washed his car just before this. If you're going to commit suicide, you don't do something like that. But how could you not see a single train coming? Of course, you're going to see a single train coming. And they have to honk that horn at a crossing. And he apparently, that crossing was over a little river. So he
Yeah.
said, look, if you wanted to commit suicide, just drive into the water and drown.
Anybody going on a level crossing, a rail crossing, will naturally look and see if there's a train coming, especially if there are no gates there.
And he was a safety inspector. So how much more so would he have watched for a train?
Yeah, especially if he's got his family in the car as well.
I agree with you there. It makes no sense.